and it's quite different from the low, medium, and high scoring that you may see from other platform providers. Because low, medium, and high is a qualitative assessment, and we've seen organizations where 90% of the notes application were marked as low, and 2 years later they've only made progress through about 10 or 15% of those applications, mostly because the low rating was not granular enough to actually indicate the level of complexity of the task. So we are brutally harnessed into what's going to take to move each application, and we feel that's much more important in an organization making those decisions. So how do we operate? Well, we run on one or more workstations. We do not install anything on the Domino server. We do not read data from the Domino server, only metadata. And we will then, usually with a read-only ID, retrieve all metadata from all the nodes databases, store everything into a central relational database from which a set of tools are provided. The technical roadmap is the one I'll show you in a minute, that provides guidance as to whether there's an opportunity to rationalize those applications and what will be the issues that one may encounter when migrating that specific application. And then, of course, we provide summary management roadmap and presentations. Those will be made by your partner, Blue Wave. So give you an idea of what the management summary looks like, really where the kind of information that bubbles out. So in this case, we looked at 1,000 nodes databases. We discovered its overall size, which is 1.6 terabytes, 11 million documents. We found out that quite a few databases were very large, exceeding 4 gigabytes. Actually, we've seen organizations with database exceeding 50 gigabytes, which is, as you know, a really, really bad idea. How many unique design elements? In this case, we're also capable of computing the unique code, meaning that, sure, there could be a lot of Lotus Notes code inside those databases, but by and large, it's just copy and paste. And what we find is generally about 10% of the code in Notes is truly unique across a large pool of application. We find out which application derive from which template. That's pretty to do. But we also, more importantly, find the similar application, and I'll jump into that in a few minutes. This is where the high leverage happens when looking at a large block of application. We also find out the level of integration, how many nodes database actually talk to the outside world, exchange data with the outside world, and how many of them are mail-enabled. So some of the kind of the characteristic you find here, you'll find information about, what is the percentage of Lotus Notes application which have a design that permits access via a browser through the Domino HTTP server, and which don't. Some organizations, half of them have been web-enabled. The other half require a fat Lotus Notes client. Again, perhaps a good group to be starting with, since you do have to purchase a Lotus Notes client to do so. We also find out kind of the the relevance and the scope of the application. So this is again a traditional way of breaking up Notes app. What we find out is about half of the apps are often used by a very small group of people, 2 to 10 people. Those are all based on real averages. Now, it doesn't mean that those applications are not valuable, because if the the 5 people using the application are the lawyers for your firm, you certainly don't want to sunset the application without telling them. And more importantly, the chances are is they are managing very valuable processes, data and contract, for instance, within that group. Again, it could be a set of application used by perhaps the HR department that manages the entire hiring and staffing of your company. So again, the number of people is not an indicator of the value. You have to go a little deeper than that. But it is a good way to get started. If you're getting started in a migration where perhaps you don't want to pick an application that impacts every single user in the organization, because, well, you're going to need a license a force license for each one of those users, which maybe you don't want to start with at the beginning. Maybe you just want to identify a group, a marketing group, again, legal or HR, and all the application that they may be using. Also, the volume of access. Certainly an application that has a high volume of access means that it's probably somewhat popular here. So those are, again, good candidates to be looking at in the first phase. So the technical roadmap, rather than talk about it, I'm going to show you the technical roadmap. So what we do is, because again we've looked at every single Lotus Notes database design element, we're capable of summarizing it. And this is a very small organization. In this case, it's only 143 databases. But we are capable, by looking at every line of code, to figure out which databases have an element of integration. Again, the goal has to demystify, to unlock the situation where, as opposed to say, my God, it's going to be impossible, and keep repeating it's impossible, the Chicken Little problem here. We say, well, sure, there's quite a bit of integration among those Notes applications, but actually it only happens in 11 out of 143 databases, and more precisely, out of 190,000 elements, which is a large number of elements, there's only 74 elements that actually contain code that is capable of integrating with the outside world. So it really puts a number, a very precise number, on the magnitude of the problem, meaning that in this case, the situation of dealing with integration is limited to those elements. The same occurs with SAP. Same occurs with the Domino directory, code that talks to the Domino directory, meaning that it has to be, the directory has to be working on the target platform, and we can certainly provision a force directory as well. Email, profiles, independent. We even have the ability to figure out master detail relationship within Notes. So key number I want to leave you with here, pretty common. We found that only about 20% of the elements are truly unique. And that really brings us into the similarity engine. Because we have such a multi-criteria score, statistically, it's feasible to figure out which applications are within a certain range. So if you say, well, show me all the Notes applications which are within 90% of the score in the forms, 50% in the views, and 90% of the edge. Show me all those databases, group them on that basis. What we find out is, and that's very common, that only 1/3 to 2/3 of those applications are truly unique. To rephrase what I'm saying, this means that of that pool of application, if you are willing to deal with slight variation between the design of those applications, you can actually regroup those applications into a single target on the new platform. That's a huge time saving. So the similarity analysis is a way you rationalize based on design. Clearly, the data in all those applications is still going to be moved into the same target. But you drop a significant number of applications. And this organization actually had this was 16%.